Welcome to First. I'm Shirley Min along with Nichelle Polston and Mark Eichman. Is the Delaware Art Museum doing the responsible thing in considering auctioning off some of its works to pay off debt?
The Delaware political world is still buzzing over Beau Biden's decision to not run for Attorney General. State of Play makes that topic one this week.
The retail world is buzzing over the opening of Cabela's next week. We'll look at why this is a big deal for the economy of the Christiana Mall. First, your public media news magazine starts now.
With the dilemma, pay off $20 million in debt by this fall or close, the Delaware Art Museum announced last month it would sell art from its collection to come up with the funds. Now, how the museum arrived at this controversial decision and what the potential consequences may be are just some of the questions we try to answer in this week's First Look. The Delaware Art Museum describes its decision to sell up to 4 works of art to satisfy a $19.8 million debt due this fall as a last resort.
We considered refinancing the debt. We talked with a number of banks to do that. We'd already reduced expenses, operating expenses of the museum substantially. We had cut staff. We had frozen salaries.
It's not known what works will be sold, only that the sales will occur over the next several months to keep the museum from closing.
Our plan is that we will realize proceeds of roughly $30 million, which will allow us to pay off the debt with about $10 million left to add to our endowment fund.
Museum CEO Mike Miller says there's $25 million in the endowment now, enough to pay off the debt. But Miller says operating costs will quickly burn through what's left, and the museum will face closure yet again.
Our donations from individuals and corporations and from the work that we do inside here are not sufficient to fund all of the expenses, so we have to rely on the endowment.
The debt stems from a $24.8 million building campaign about 10 years ago. The expansion was paid for with bonds guaranteed through a Wells Fargo letter of credit. Then the Great Recession hit in 2008, which tightened credit standards. Consequently, Wells Fargo notified the museum last year that it would not be renewing the letter of credit this fall. Board of Trustees President Ferrari Graham believes selling the art is a small, albeit painful price to pay for the greater good.
Part of our stewardship, I think, as trustees, is to maintain the museum and to preserve the art. And we can't preserve the art and maintain the museum as a resource for the community unless we have a museum.
Philadelphia Museum of Art CEO Timothy Rubb also serves as president of the Association of Art Museum Directors. He defines stewardship differently.
We as professional staff and trustees have an obligation to care for that collection and preserve it, as much as we have an obligation to maintain the financial stability of our institutions. If a Homer leaves, if a Wyeth leaves, if what have you goes, it's gone. And chances are something of that quality will never, ever come back to the museum and to the community again.
The AAMD is an organization that acts as a governing body over its museum members. One of the AAMD's core principles is to protect the art above all else, no exceptions. However, Miller says if a museum is staring down closure, there should be a but.
In our case, our community is the public, and we can't see how we're maintaining their trust by putting the museum at risk by shutting down.
The decision to sell works from the collection came as a surprise to many in Delaware and to Rubb, who says a whistleblower inside the museum alerted him to the board's considered actions last year.
Why suffer in silence when there's an opportunity? It may be a last-ditch effort, but to gather, to really reveal the extent of the problem, to ask for support, to use the lever of public opinion, perhaps to move the conversation forward.
And perhaps result in the financial rescue of the museum.
Donors have told us if you are in trouble, nonprofits have financial issues, people don't like to give to those nonprofits.
Everybody loves a winner, that's true. But everybody's got to realize, and I think most people do, that support for institutions like this need to be supported through difficult times.
Rubb still believes more could and should have been done.
You might go into a period where you could do very little, actually, in terms of operating the museum, except keep the doors open and keep the lights on and the like, but you still have your collection intact.
Turning art into a financial lifesaver, Rubb fears, creates a very slippery slope.
Eventually, one can imagine instances where a collection would be cannibalized.
While the AAMD doesn't have police powers, it does have ways to punish museums through censure and/or sanctions. Consequences the Delaware Art Museum says it's prepared for. The Delaware Art Museum says no works of art have been sold yet. And while remote, there is still the chance, again, albeit slim, that the museum could change its mind.
So, Shirley, is there any history behind this? Have other museums sold works of art to kind of make ends meet?
Randolph College in Virginia sold a painting from its Mayer Museum of Art for similar reasons, and the AAMD sanctioned the museum last month. And that means that the organization strongly encouraged its members to not loan or organize any exhibitions with that museum. And also, according to the AAMD's website, it wasn't the first time that the college sold a painting to make up for a budget shortfall.
And so that's sort of what they're concerned about, that slippery slope that once it happens, it will happen again.
Exactly. And on the other hand, you have AAMD pointing to the American Folk Art Museum in New York and the Detroit Institute of Arts Museum as institutions that were under similar and arguably worse financial situations than the Delaware Art Museum, and yet did not sell. Now, the Folk Art Museum even went so far as selling the building and downsizing to preserve the collection. The Delaware Art Museum, however, insists that after this sale, it will be on good financial footing. That being said, though, CEO Mike Miller says the Delaware Art Museum still needs people coming through its doors, and it needs to keep up with fundraising.
And the Art Museum not saying what works are going to be sold. Why is there this kind of shroud of secrecy around the sale?
Miller's trying to get the most bang for the buck for however many paintings are sold, which we know the maximum could be 4. But he describes art buyers as very shy. And so if there's any controversy or strong emotions tied to a painting, for example, those buyers will get scared away, and then the museum can't get the maximum value for the art.
All right, thanks, Shirley. We will continue to report on the Delaware Art Museum story right here on First and on newsworks.org/Delaware. There's an event taking place next week that might not rank culturally with the Delaware Art Museum, but it sure has a lot of people buzzing. Cabela's is opening its 100,000 square foot store next week. The opening is all part of a 10-year effort to redefine the Christiana Mall. This is Cabela's, a massive shopping mecca for outdoors enthusiasts interested in hunting, fishing, camping, and more. Yes, that more includes an archery range to try out the latest bows.
I am a hunter myself, always bow hunted. That's the only hunting I do. I absolutely love it.
A longtime customer, Rick Carpenter, is now one of the 250 employees, they call them outfitters here, hired at Cabela's Christiana store.
Even if you're not here to buy products, it's a great experience. A lot of mounts around here, museum quality mounts, and we have a grill back there, and a huge mountain scene. So it's fantastic. We got something for everyone.
It's a win-win for everybody in the community as we introduce new people into the outdoor experience, whether we're a retailer or whether just for the tourism business in the state.
The store is part of Cabela's new focus on building locations closer to their customers. Many of the older stores are built further out in the country. This location is just the latest tenant of the expanding Christiana Mall.
Christiana Mall has been a great partner for us. We're excited to have that partnership with them, and you're absolutely right. You can spend an entire day in this area and shopping, not only in Cabela's, but at the mall as well.
It's coming here because it fits the market perfectly. It's a point of difference for us. That's why we wanted it.
Christiana Mall General Manager Steve Chambliss says although it's in the parking lot, Cabela's is considered an anchor store like Macy's or JCPenney's. Cabela's is just the latest step in a massive overhaul of the shopping center, an effort that really got going around 2007-2008 when both Lord & Taylor and Strawbridge's shut their doors.
With the 2 closed anchors, we were able to get some real estate back and then expand some of the sections that we wanted to kind of make them more relevant, then remodel the rest of the existing center. So it was multifaceted, and all of it was to make the mall more current and relevant.
Along with the remodel came a new policy that required young people to be accompanied by adults while in the mall, a policy that drew protests from some at the time.
It's been very positive. It's changed the image, and it's made the mall a nice shopping destination and not just necessarily for hanging out or meeting your friends here. It's that too, but on certain nights, just due to the volume, we needed to kind of tighten the controls up a little bit.
In the years since, the mall has grown more high-end and is now at full capacity retailer-wise, all during a down economy.
We're right in a really great niche, and we knew it as that was one of the decisions in expanding the property, that knowing you have all those basic things, just like you moved into the right neighborhood, and so we knew we had what we needed to develop and that the mall had growth potential.
As Cabela's opens its doors, work is underway on the next mall amenity, a 12-screen Cinemark movie theater. And there's plans for even more stores just beyond the mall's property. Work is starting on the Christiana Fashion Center with proposed stores like Nordstrom Rack and Saks, and more restaurants too.
We think they'll just create a bigger destination, although we're not going to get credit for the sales. We'll get the added traffic coming to the market, and it's good with us too.
The mall's new movie theater should open around November 1st, just in time for the holiday season. Cabela's will host its official grand opening on May 1st. With new stores and other additions, the next problem the mall and the surrounding shopping areas will have to face will be, where will everyone park? The solution could be a parking garage that may be in the works in the next few years.
Coming up on First, we head to the movies. The Wilmington Film Festival is underway. We'll talk to the person behind the festival. And the Music School of Delaware is ready for its concert season. First Experience shows you how they're doing.
Rarely have we had a week in Delaware politics like last week. This is State of Play. Here with me are Stephanie Hansen, former Newcastle County Council President, now with the law firm of Young, Conaway, Stargett and Taylor. Also here is Michael Stafford. He is an attorney and syndicated columnist whose work has been featured on MSNBC. Welcome. I want to start with you, Michael, because you're not too convinced. Well, let's start with the big news first. Attorney General Beau Biden announced that he will not run for re-election, instead run for governor 2016, but you're not too convinced. Tell me why.
Well, I'm not convinced. I mean, I think health permitting is the caveat that announcement has to come with. I think if Beau's healthy, he runs. But is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be able in 2016 to go out and endure the rigors of a campaign? And at least to me, at this point, that's an open question. I mean, we're talking about a man who has had a couple of serious health conditions, one of which is still somewhat of a mystery and is unexplained. We don't know what the prognosis is long-term for him. I think everybody, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, is praying that he's going to be okay. We all hope for that. But until we know something firm about what the condition is, what the prognosis is, it's really a bit of a crapshoot.
Did his announcement shock you at all?
I was surprised at the timing because it seemed early. I mean, we're talking about 2016, an election that's going to happen in 2016, and we haven't even had the 2014 election yet.
That's true.
But I think strategically it makes sense, because if he really wants to run for that office, and apparently he does, this is a good way to clear the field. Because if you've got Beau Biden that wants a particular office in 2016, there aren't too many people that are going to be able to challenge him and to challenge him successfully. And I think it's his way of getting out there early and, putting to rest maybe some thoughts of others that might have wanted to run, because they're like, well, Beau's running, so I need to step back.
We have two clips about Beau's health. One is from a 2010 interview with Bill Cook, another from last February, not too long after his surgery in Houston, but the first one, 2010, and it was right after his stroke.
Now, it's hard to believe, but last May you suffered a mild stroke. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm back running, not just running for office, running, right. Literally running. Went for a run over the weekend and run 2 or 3 days a week, 4 days a week if I'm lucky, taking an aspirin a day. And, I got back from Iraq, the best shape of my life. Didn't think I'd land myself in a hospital last spring, but did. And I feel great. I appreciate you asking that. I'm in good shape. I got very lucky. I got blessed.
How are you feeling right now?
I feel great. How about you?
Oh, not too bad.
You can run with me later today, after 5 o'clock,
Not good on cardio. I can do a bike.
All right.
Do you ride a bike at all?
I bike, but mostly run.
Yeah.
Mostly run.
Yeah.
Still do. Back running. So Randall's going to go running with me. You talk to me. Yeah. I talked to him. Well, no, I got a clean bill of health. I'm very, very lucky, and I want to, thank everyone, especially at Thanksgiving, who've reached out to me, and since August. I've been back at work since September 4th, and responded to a lot of emails and text messages and phone calls and letters, and I couldn't be more grateful to people.
While both interviews definitely sound similar, do you think voters in Delaware will actually care about his past if he says he's pretty much healthy now?
I think it's absolutely going to be an issue because, again, it's one thing to have an AG who's had a couple of serious health problems that have, for a period of time at least, kind of removed him from being able to effectively exercise the office. Having that person be the governor takes it to a whole nother level.
Let's move on to Lieutenant Governor Matt Dinn. He's been in the news as well. Let's go to a clip.
We have a big crime problem in the state of Delaware, and particularly in the city of Wilmington, and that's got to be a priority in that office, is bringing those numbers down and bringing down the number of victims of those crimes, and that spills over into all sorts of different areas in terms of what the business climate is here, but most importantly, they're just human tragedies that we have to reduce the numbers of.
Matt Dinn is going after the attorney, he'll run for Attorney General. Is that a good move?
I think so. I think so. Matt is a very good and effective public official. I mean, he was great as the insurance commissioner. I mean, being able to take an office that nobody knew anything about and didn't have any idea what was going on, and really institute some really good changes and good policies in there. I think it's a good move for him. I think it's a good move for the people in Delaware.
Okay.
But his vulnerability the very first words out of his mouth in the video clip we just watched highlight the weakness of the candidacy. Delaware has a crime problem. He doesn't have a background in criminal justice or criminal law. That's a vulnerability. I mean, if we had a legitimate opposition party that could field a credible candidate, they'd be able to exploit that. We'll see whether a credible candidate emerges.
It does give us something to talk about. So, as we like to say, stay tuned. Stephanie Hansen and Michael Stafford, thanks for being here on State of Play. You can watch this interview at newsworks.org/Delaware. Click the drop-down box at the top of the page.
The best way to watch First online is at WHYY.org/First. Past shows are there right now. This show is available on Monday. Our e-newsletter lets you know what's coming up for next week. Check them out.
If you're watching First on Friday or Saturday, then it's not too late to head out to the Wilmington Film Festival. Barry Schlecker is our first person this week, and the force behind the festival, more affectionately known as the Wilm Film Festival.
Right.
Barry, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You know, the festival is a really big undertaking, but you've been doing it for a long time, so what goes into making something like this come into fruition?
Well, again, you have to have a philosophy, and my philosophy and our goal was to bring independent documentary films to one weekend, then see them all in one weekend. Living in Delaware, I was always frustrated wanting to see good independent documentary films. We're not a big state. They're not booked here, so our choices are go to the Philly, Ritz's, and art theaters, and then you have 95 in parking. Hope that they show it at Theater N, but if you're not home that weekend, you miss it. Or wait for Redbox or Demand or whatever. And those films, those independent documentary films, sometimes don't make it for 6 months to a year. So my goal was to bring 20 to 25 films you should have seen, and I want to see, so I'm being selfish, under one weekend, under one roof. And we got lucky when Penn Cinema opened at the riverfront. So now I have a great venue.
And people can binge watch.
And that's what they do. We have some people who buy a festival pass for $75 and stay there all weekend and literally can see 20 films.
Okay, well, we have a clip of one of the movies, and it's a short.
Yes, as sort of a tribute to Delaware filmmakers, we have a group of short films we call Delaware Shorts, in which one of the local filmmakers has curated 5 or 6 films, all made by local or regional filmmakers under the title Delaware Shorts. So Rob Waters from Rehoboth has brought together 5 films, and this is one of them.
I know how to fight. I'm a good fighter.
Yeah.
Says who?
Says everybody.
Oh.
Says my record. I fight MMA, not a boxer. It's mixed martial arts. Anyway, one day a couple months ago, I took a decision over a guy, and after the fight I said to Mitchie, you know, when am I going to fight for some real money, some belt or something, you know? And he said, when a fight like this doesn't go to a decision.
That sounds like Mitchie.
And then he says to me, you're a good fighter, kid, but you're no killer. And we need you to be a killer.
You know what, I like the way that was shot. It looked really beautiful. And I think it's great that you're giving the exposure to local folks.
We have 24 films and 7 have a local connection.
Now, if someone's watching this on Monday or on WHYY or ITN, they'll have missed the festival. But let's talk about the future of the festival. Pretty secure?
Well, the nice thing is I'm learning a lot about technology because film festivals are a victim of the new technology. Some of the older theaters do not have the technology. The nice thing about Penn Cinema at the Riverfront, it's brand new with state-of-the-art. I'm learning things like DCP, digital cinematic production, projection. So all these films cannot be on the DVDs or the big 35 millimeter. They come on a hard drive. So yes, I really think this is going to be a boom to us.
You know, you brought back the Brandywine Festival of the Arts. You've got the Rockwood Ice Cream Festival.
Yes.
As I said, you are the go-to festival guy. Let's talk about the Brandywine Festival of the Arts first. You brought that back a couple of years ago. How are things doing?
It's great. I learned something that you can't pay for history. It's like finding a restaurant with a great location, bad food.
Right.
Just changed the menu, brought in good food, brought in great art, brought in music, tent for children, and we sort of worked it, and it's great. It's
and that formula also helped you resurrect the Ice Cream Festival.
Well, I got cocky. After reviving the Brandywine Festival, somebody mentioned the Rockwood Ice Cream Festival, which again had been around 30, 40 years. So again, the state of Delaware helps me with Brandywine. Newcastle County was very helpful in helping me bring back Rockwood Ice Cream Festival.
We're going to kind of shift gears, and
Sure.
at the top of the broadcast this week, we talked about how the Delaware Art Museum is going to sell works, has announced it will sell works to make up for some
Yes.
budget problems. Does that sort of issue hurt Delaware from a cultural standpoint, in your opinion?
I'm a businessman first, and I'm a practical person. So I was saying to somebody, the whole idea is to stay open. If your business is in trouble and you have assets, I think that's okay. I think I don't understand what they're saying about prestige among other art museums, but from a practical standpoint, as long as we can survive, I think survival is important.
Well, Barry Schlecker, thank you so much for being here this week and being our first person. His Barry Events Group organized the Wilm Film Festival. Again, if you want to learn more or see a recap, go to wilmfilm.com.
The gift of music can be enjoyed no matter your age. The Music School of Delaware takes it a step further with the Delaware Youth Symphony Orchestra. It is made up of kids of all ages. The group comes together to learn and share in that gift. First experience went to the Wilmington branch of the music school as the orchestra was preparing for the current season.
Music is a disease, kind of. So in some way, all of us who are there are all sick. As a conductor, I really like beginning to end. I love when I start to do the auditions. And then I love the rehearsal process. And then, of course, the concert is like, you know, when they really are confident, you don't need to do a lot. Then at that point, it's about open your heart with them and have them open their heart to you and the audience, and then the magic starts.
I've been playing since 5th grade, so this is my 7th year. I practice about 4 to 6 hours a day. you can't just come here and practice when you get here. If you do that, then you're not going to do well, and the whole orchestra won't sound good.
I definitely put a lot of effort into it. Usually every day I practice 2 to 3 hours, but it's all worth it once you get to the concert, and it just sounds amazing.
A lot of the work we have to do outside because we only have so many rehearsals before we have a concert. So, I mean, that means going home, learning through new music, and then coming prepared for rehearsals, that way you're ready to go.
I added a new element that I found very useful, that is having sectionals led by the principal of the orchestra. So our students often get this opportunity to lead their section. So this is something that I'm very proud of, and I think with time will really bring the orchestra in a different level. I can tell, week by week, I can hear things, set better in place. So by the end, you see all this electricity. It's like a beautiful gift that we give to each other. Sometimes, really, I feel I'm so lucky to do this as a job, because it's not a job. Honestly, if I were a millionaire, I would pay to do it.
It's just nice to know that I'm good at something, and it's fun. I have a lot of fun. Performing, it's a great feeling. All of it. I love all of it.
It's a different kind of environment, and being up there on the stage with students that you don't necessarily see on a regular basis, it's exciting because you know that even though you don't see them all the time, you can still get together and create something.
It's just an amazing experience to just join together with other musicians who have the same love and desire for music.
Another unique feature of the music school is their master classes. The students are given the opportunity to not only lead their sections, but also come up front and take a turn conducting the entire orchestra. It is a great learning experience for all involved. You can get more information on the music school when you visit their website, musicschoolofdelaware.org.
And next week on First, we look at redevelopment in Wilmington in the context of a state plan aimed at helping several cities around the state. And a Milton artist has found a way to capture the people and personality of the town through a series of portraits.
And before we present those stories, we will be here Tuesday at 5:30 for a First Extra on higher education. We have in-depth interviews with leaders from Delaware State and Delaware Technical and Community College. Join us on WHYY Tuesday at 5:30 with an encore presentation Wednesday at 11 p.m.
Well, that is our show for this week. We thank you for watching. For Nichelle Polston and Mark Eichman, I'm Shirley Min. Have a great week and check in with us on First Tuesday and Friday.